You can have all the attention in the world and still not grow your business. You can have a lot of views, you can have a lot of likes and still not get sales. Conversion is where it's at. That's where business is built. So in the last episode, what we talked about was the flow. We talked about how we had to be intentional, we had to be consistent, disciplined in that flow. Today, we're going to be talking about conversion. And this is where you talk about the ROI, the return on investment. That return on investment is not only financial if you're using paid ads, but it's also return on investment for your time. It doesn't make any sense to spend a lot of time, become very disciplined in daily posting, liking, commenting, doing all the things that are necessary to be able to get the views if you're not able to convert them. So today we're going to talk about conversion and what that means. So what is a conversion? A conversion can be the actual sale, but a conversion can also be a call to action being answered. So a conversion might be them DMing you, giving you a direct message. It might be them filling out a form. It could be setting up an appointment. All these are forms of conversion that you're looking for. And this is the way you're going to be able to get one more step closer, to that sale. So don't always look at conversion having to be the sale. So you keep the flow and make sure that you have everything flowing in, and then your call to action. What do you want them to do next? And so that's going to be the conversion. One of the biggest mistakes that I've made personally and continue to make, and that is making sure there's always a call to action with every video, every piece of content you're putting out. I'm going to tell you, you're not always going to get it done, but it's something you want to shoot for because that's something that you can measure. You can measure the call to actions. How many people actually reached out? How many people commented? And how many people took that next step? So I want to encourage you to make sure that you're having that call to action on the flow piece to be able to get to that conversion. Why most businesses do not convert, and whether this is converting to a sales or this is converting to the next step that we were just talking about, most businesses are going to have some kind of conversion, whether it's 1%, 2%, 5%, or 10% conversion rate. Some people will claim to have a much higher conversion rate. I always question what they're actually measuring when they have a very high conversion. But if you can increase your conversion rate. So right now, if you're at a 5% conversion, how do you get to a 10% conversion? I want to talk about two common problems that people have when it comes to conversion. And one is people not understanding exactly what it is you do. You're in it every day. You know your business. You know what your offers are. You know what your value is. But a lot of times the consumer just doesn't know. So this is one of the first common mistakes that I see is people are asking for a conversion when the customer still really doesn't know what it is you do. And so you want to make sure that you're hitting that first problem of making sure they understand. And the best way to do this is to take some relatives, some friends that are outside the business and put your pitch in front of them, put your commercials in front of them, put your ads in front of them, and see what kind of questions that they have. One of the things I think is important before we go to the next one is how are you going to be able to measure? You need to have a CRM, a customer retention. You need to have something that you're tracking on. Every single industry out there has CRMs that are built towards them. So if you're in the service industry, the retail industry, manufacturing, there's going to be a CRM out there that's not going to be real expensive. It's not going to have all the bells and whistles maybe, but it's still going to help you be able to track your activities that you're doing on a daily and track the activity with the customer. The other thing is what's your customer engagement model? So once you get somebody to come in from that flow and they're coming into that conversion aspect of it, now it's a matter of how do you track that? And it's customer engagement model that you want to map out and to be able to say, when they come through whatever portal it is, whether it's through social media, whether it's a phone call, whether it's they're walking through your front door, what's the next step? What are you saying to them? What's the scripts you're using? And this might sound almost I know for some people it's going to be, that sounds like a lot of work. But if you're going to be able to reproduce those sales, you need to make sure you understand what is it that you say to each person that walks through that door, each person that calls, sends an email. How are you tracking the next step with that customer? Is it a follow-up email, follow-up phone call? Are you setting an appointment after the appointment? Are you setting the next appointment? Are you sending a recap of the meeting that you had with them? And what's the next call to action that you have for the customer or potential customer? And so that's why it's going to be important for you to be able to track these things. The second common mistake that a lot of people make is they don't ask for the sale. They don't ask for the next call to action and what that might be. So it might be a matter of you're asking for the appointment to go out and meet them at their home. If you're a plumbing company and they call up and they have questions about a hot water heater and you're talking about the hot water heater, you're explaining what water heaters you carry. You're going through and talking about why your hot water heater is the best hot water heater, but you do not ask for that next step. You're not saying, hey, can I come to your home? When would be a good time to meet with you? And to be able to look at your current hot water heater, the needs that you have, and to be able to have that next step. So I would say the second most common mistake that people make when it comes to the conversion is they're not asking the right questions. And so you need to make sure, again, that you're mapping these out. When we're talking about the call to action, here's what I want you to do is I want you to think about everything that you buy. Every time you stop, if you're looking for a new car, if you're looking at buying an appliance, whatever it is that you're doing, and when you talk to a salesperson, thinking about where did they drop the ball. And when you do this, what you'll find so many times is then you realize you had to call 2 or 3 times to be able to get the information you needed. You do not want to put your customers, potential customers, into the same space. You want to make sure that you always have that next step. Is it a text that you're sending out? Making sure you're asking the customer, what's the best way to get a hold of you? For some people, it's Messenger. For some people, it can be texting. For other people, it's going to be a phone call. For other people, it might be an email, which that's becoming more rare all the time. But you need to find out what it is, how it is they want you to be able to reach out to them. I'm constantly looking at the services we have, the people that we're doing business with, and seeing how we have to chase them down. We have to call multiple times to get pricing on something, to work through something. And I realize I never want to put our customers in this situation. But here's the biggest thing. Most businesses have 1 to 5 employees at most. And so I don't know where you're at in your business, whether you're just starting, you've been going for a while, maybe you're looking at hiring that first employee. Nobody is going to be able to do it the same way you do it. No one, if you're really good at the sales and that's how you built your business, which is typical, and then you bring somebody else in, you're going to need to have all these pieces put in place to be able to track them and to be able to see where the problems might be at if they're not getting the sales. And so I want to encourage you to make sure that you are writing everything down. It's called an SOP, a standard operating procedure for every step you take in that process. And trust me on this, this is going to help you articulate it. This is going to help you dial it in, and you will increase your personal conversion rate, but then you'll also set somebody else up for success. You're in it for the long game. And so when we talk about conversion, so many times that conversion is not necessarily going to happen in a day, a week, a month. Sometimes it can be someone you've talked to 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Again, this is why the CRM is so important, how you're tracking that information. I've been in business now for many, many years, decades, have sold over $180 million, been in charge of over $180 million in sales. This is with the average ticket being $5,500. A lot of those items being anywhere from 30 cents, up to $80 per piece. But a lot of that smaller transactions. And so I can tell you that there are people we've been doing business with for decades. And then there's also people who we just started doing business with that we've been reaching out to for years. And so when we talk about the flow, we're talking about how to get them into the system It doesn't always happen as quick as we would like. That conversion can take time. This is a long game. And so I always want to encourage people, you don't want to look at a week to 3 weeks to 5 weeks. Make 90-day plans knowing that it's going to take 1 to 3 years to build a really robust system that has the flow, the conversion, and then the retention. You're not able to have conversion without flow. So even as you start to put more of an emphasis on the conversion, you cannot stop the flow. And again, just to recap that, this is where the consistency has to be there. It's the daily postings. It's making sure that you're doing all those things that are necessary. You have to be disciplined, and you have to make sure that you're putting it into a calendar. You're looking at the visibility, being out there visible. This could be everything from your vehicle being wrapped, to being on billboards, to being on social media, to being on the radio. This is all different kinds of forms of being able to make sure people can see you and so they can think about you. And then the repetition, you're just doing it over and over again. The typical person has to be able to see you 7 to 21 times before that first initial contact even happens. Many years ago, I managed a restaurant, and I would have people say, it must be nice. You're in a franchise restaurant. You really don't have to advertise. And I would ask customers all the time, hey, what brought you in tonight? And it would be a radio ad. It would be a TV ad. It would be, they saw the billboard. It would be the Book It program that their child was in at school. It was something we were doing that would get them to come in that night, that weekend night, that, Taco Tuesday, taco pizzas would fly out. There was something that was taking place that was bringing them through the door. You have to be visible. And so you have to make sure that flow is there. The conversion is, you have to be clear. Kind of back to that example, Wednesday nights we had buffet. Lunchtime we had buffet. The call to action was, come Wednesday night to the buffet. Lunch, buffet. After the game on Friday, after the game on Saturday, there was a call to action to bring them in. Hey, bring your family when you come in with the Book It program and get the personal pan pizza, and the rest of the family can enjoy along with the grandparents. It's the call to action that's always going to be important no matter what business you're in. If you're in a home service business, if you're in a retail business, or if you're in the restaurant business, you're going to want to make sure that you're calling them to some kind of action, whether they're picking up the phone, whether they're scanning a QR code. You want to make sure you're clear in what that action is. That's the conversion, is the action. One of the things you're going to find when it comes to the marketing side of the business, where a lot of people fall short, quite honestly, and that's going to be in sticking with it. Embracing the suck is something we talk about, because there's a lot of times when it's boring. It's when you don't see the immediate results. You're doing it day after day. This is why I strongly urge you to look at a 1 to 3 year window of what it's going to take to get that flow going. And then that flow will end up being the conversion that's needed for the ROI. The flow is where you build trust. This is where you're building that relationship. The conversion is where that trust is rewarded. Now, when we're talking about the conversion, I want to go and how we can improve our conversion rates. One of the things you're going to find a lot of times is people overcomplicate it. And let me give you some examples of how you're able to do this. If you are in the home services business, for example, and you go into somebody and they need a new roof, and that's why you're there. But while you're there, you see that they need new siding, but they could also use new windows. And the garage, they have a concrete slab, and it'd be really nice if they had a garage there. Or maybe you could even build them something to put their car underneath, a carport or something of that nature. And so you start talking about all these other things that you can add onto it instead of just concentrating on the roof, where it's one offer. You're going after the one sale and you overcomplicate it. And now the consumer is going, I just wanted to do this, and now I have all these other things being thrown at me, and they'll end up freezing. In the marketing, I do this all the time. We have a company called Clear Profit Digital Marketing. We'll go in where we're talking to somebody about videos and creating videos for them, and that's what they're wanting. The customer has seen Judy's videos, they've seen other videos that we produce, and they want videos for their business. But then when you sit down with them, you realize their website needs improvement, or they need a website, they need landing pages, they need SEO, they need to be on other social media platforms, they need to be on TikTok, and they need to be on Instagram and LinkedIn, and you start adding all these things. When the initial conversation was about videos, and then we overcomplicate it, and this is one of the things a lot of businesses do, and they make it so a person doesn't even know what the next step is, and then they freeze, and then they don't buy anything, and they stop the process. One of my partners, Victor Dantes from Clear Profit, when we go into a meeting, he tells me often, let's stay focused on just this one product, and then once we get them using that, then we can upsell, and then we can show them other things. As a business owner, we have 10 different businesses that we're operating right now. You know what you want to offer the customer. You want to help them. You want to take care of them. And so as you see things, whatever it might be, whether it's in the home services, whether it's in retail and you're trying to sell them something, you want to take care of all the needs that they have. But by you complicating it, you'll end up slowing the process down. So I want to encourage you, stick with one problem and one solution when it comes to the conversion. You want to be specific about who it's for, who your product's for, who your service is for. There's a couple reasons for this, but one of them is going to be it will attract the right customers and it will repel the wrong customers. So Judy, for example, she talks all the time about how she has pancakes, Judy's Cafe. Well, if you're someone who doesn't like pancakes, well, it might not be the right place for you. It's when you're looking at a business that offers commercial roofing, you want to make sure that your offer is directed at owners of buildings that need a commercial roof. You don't want to be attracting the wrong people and not have a specific ask for the call to action, and make sure that you're not getting people who are calling you who do not qualify for your product. And so there's all different kinds of ways you can do this with your business. You want to make sure they use your product and they're in a position to afford it, and they're in a position for it to solve a problem that they have. When we talk about making the next step obvious, this is something that has to happen with every single step in the process. So right from the very beginning, when you're working on the flow, you're making that call to action very obvious. What is it they need to do? Do they need to call you? Do they need to email you? Do they need to scan a QR code? Do they need to schedule an appointment? And then after you have that appointment with somebody, after you have that phone call with somebody, you need to make sure the next step is just as obvious as the first step. Even after, and we'll get into this in a later segment, but even after the conversion, even after it all takes place, we're going to keep talking about next step, next step, next step, because we want to have the retention with the customer, but we also want to get referrals from the customer. And so this is where there's always going to be that next step. So in your CRM, every time you talk to somebody, whether it's through texting, whether it's through email, whether it's through a phone call, however it is you reached out to them, you want to make sure that next step. Even when it comes to someone hitting your website, what's the next step? Are you following up with target marketing that's hitting them with ads? You want to make sure that in your customer engagement model, the next step is always clear for you and it's always clear for the customer. Not every conversion needs to be a sale. And this is something we've mentioned already, but I want to emphasize this again, and that's going to be we're in it for the long game. So whether it's a week, whether it's a year, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that we know that a win is furthering the conversation. Because as long as we can keep talking with the potential customer, we have the opportunity to make them a customer. The goal isn't pressure. The goal is momentum. And what you have to learn through all of this is you have to trust the process. But here's the key to that. You have to have a process to be able to trust it. Now that we've talked about conversion, how do we apply this to our everyday business? People are not waking up in the morning saying, how do I buy from you? They're waking up trying to solve a problem. They're waking up because they want to buy something because they want it. There's a pleasure that's with that particular product that they're trying to buy. So that's the two reasons why people buy. They're either going to buy to solve a problem, or they're going to buy because it's a gain/pleasure. I would say in business today, the best business to be in, and this, if you listen to Cody Sanchez and so many others, it's when you solve a problem. Is it a leaky roof? Is it somebody needing a new air and heating unit? Is it somebody who needs something that's going to make their life better, but it's a problem they have? They have a flat tire. They have a car that's not working. They have a light that came on in their car and they have no idea what to do, what the next step is. You want to be that person that's solving a problem for them. These are the best businesses to be in. But they don't wake up knowing about you. So it has to be, what are you doing to get in front of them and then making it easy for them to do business with you? And if you're doing what we just talked about and you put these things into practice, you get a CRM. You have a customer engagement model. You will be way ahead of the competition. I get the opportunity through the radio stations and through our businesses that we have with Clear Profit and then also with Robbins Resource Management. I talk to hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and I can tell you that the majority of them do not have a CRM. The majority of them do not have a customer engagement model. But here's the deal. It's something that we didn't even have just a few years ago. It's something that we've been putting in place, and it allows us to grow our business to the point that we're now in the top 3% of businesses in the US. And the only way that this is possible is by you putting these pieces together and making sure you follow a process. Flow without conversion is nothing but noise. And then if you do not have the conversion, you're not able to get a return on your investment for what you put into the flow. If you're not measuring it, you can't scale it, you can't grow it, and all you're going to be doing is guessing. So I want to encourage you to put into practice the things that we've talked about today, making sure that you have a process in place, and even if it's just on a napkin to begin with, whether you're using Word or Excel to begin with, and then maybe you move into Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce or one of the leading CRMs that are out there. But this is something where you need to just start on this process. You do not want to be that person, and I was this person for many years, where you just throw enough stuff against a wall to see what sticks. That is no way for you to grow your business, which not only provides for you and your family, but provides for the family of the employees that you employ. And so I want to encourage you to take those next steps. Speaking of call to action, the call to action today that I'm going to give you is reach out if you have any questions. DM me down below. Reach out on any of our social media, our platforms, our websites, and I'd love to hear from you and to be able to have a conversation, to be able to help you grow your business. That is what makes us extremely happy. We're very proud to be part of our community and helping businesses grow. Join us next time, and we're going to talk about retention.